Richard Coleman slid a timeshare brochure beside Walter Hayes's dinner plate. Ethan said you cleared about $278,000 from the house, he said. I only need $25,000 for my share. Walter looked across the table at his son. He had never told Richard that number. Margaret had known it. The real estate attorney had known it. Ethan had known because Walter trusted him. No one else was supposed to know. Why are you discussing my money? Walter asked. Ethan set down his fork. Dad, Richard would pay you back. The money is just sitting there. Walter's phone vibrated against the table. A credit card alert appeared on the screen. $6,800. Lakeshore Vacation Ownership. Transaction pending. Walter looked at the brochure. Then at Richard. Richard's hand moved away from it. I thought Ethan had already discussed the deposit with you, he said. He did not. Ethan leaned forward. It's only a temporary hold. We can explain everything after dinner. Walter opened the card company's app. His finger rested above the lock button. Ethan's expression changed. Dad, don't overreact. Walter locked the card. The confirmation appeared immediately. No one spends another dollar until I know what you've already taken. The dining room went quiet. The pending charge was serious. But it was not the part that frightened Walter most. Ethan had given Richard an exact number. He had promised access to money that did not belong to him. And the timeshare was not the first purchase Walter had never approved. Hello, my friends. I'm Eleanor Brooks. If stories about family, truth, and dignity matter to you, subscribe and stay with me. Because that charge was only the first promise Ethan had made with his father's money. 4 months earlier, Walter had believed moving into his son's basement would keep him close to the people he had left. Margaret had been gone for 11 months. Their house outside Indianapolis still held her gardening gloves, her coffee cup, and the chair where she read every evening. Walter could afford to stay. He simply could not stand the silence. When Ethan offered him the finished basement, Walter accepted. It had a bedroom, a small sitting area, and a private bathroom. Walter paid $8,000 toward the renovation. He also transferred $600 each month for groceries and utilities. 2 weeks after he moved in, Ethan placed Walter's credit card on the kitchen counter. You should add me as an authorized user, he said. For what? Groceries. Your prescriptions. Emergencies. Walter picked up the card. Nothing else. Ethan smiled. Of course, Dad. Walter entered the authorization code himself. At the time, it felt like trust. Later, it would become the first record proving exactly when Ethan gained access. The third statement arrived 3 months after Ethan received the card. The first 2 had been smaller. Each time, Ethan had explained the charges as groceries, prescriptions, or expenses for the children. This statement was different. Walter opened it at the small desk in his basement. The balance was $2,946. He had expected less than $800. Walter carried the statement upstairs. Ethan was packing lunches at the kitchen island. Can you explain these charges? Ethan glanced at the first page. Most of that is groceries. Walter pointed to the largest amount. $860 at an auto repair shop. My truck needed brakes. You said the card was for my prescriptions and household emergencies. Working brakes are an emergency. Walter moved his finger down the page. There were youth soccer fees. 3 streaming subscriptions. A restaurant bill for 6 people. $200 at a sporting goods store. Ethan continued making sandwiches. The kids needed equipment. The subscriptions are for the house. And we took Richard out for his birthday. Walter looked toward Lauren. She was standing near the refrigerator. She lowered her eyes. Did you know my card was paying for this? Walter asked. Lauren closed the refrigerator door. I thought Ethan had discussed it with you. Ethan placed the sandwiches into paper bags. Dad, you live here. These things benefit everyone. Walter returned to the basement and called the card company. The representative reviewed the account. Yes, Mr. Hayes. Ethan Hayes is listed as an authorized user. I gave him permission for groceries and emergencies. I understand. But an authorized user can make purchases on the account. The primary cardholder remains responsible for the balance. What about purchases I never approved? You may remove him from the account at any time. But because you authorized his access, the existing charges cannot automatically be treated as a stolen card claim. That was the first wall. Walter could stop the next purchase. He could not erase the previous ones with a single phone call. The representative offered to remove Ethan immediately. Walter looked at the statement. He almost said yes. Then he remembered Ethan's explanations. Groceries. The children. The house. Family. Walter needed to know whether the charges were careless decisions or part of something larger. Not yet, he said. Please send me the last 3 statements. The records arrived by email 10 minutes later. Walter printed every page. He had spent 27 years reviewing purchase orders for a public school district. He knew how people hid personal spending inside broad categories. He began marking each charge with a yellow highlighter. Agreed. Household. Personal. Unknown. Then he reached the auto repair charge again. Walter checked the date. It had been made on the morning of Margaret's memorial service. While Walter was standing beside his wife's grave, Ethan had used his father's car to repair his own truck. Walter finished reviewing the statements after midnight. He had marked 43 charges. Only 12 fit the agreement he had made with Ethan. Groceries. 2 pharmacy purchases. A plumber who repaired the basement sink. The rest belonged somewhere else. Walter opened the narrow drawer beneath his desk. Margaret had kept important papers in labeled envelopes. Insurance. Taxes. Medical records. At the back was a small white envelope with her handwriting on the front. Emergency only. Inside was the original sleeve from Walter's credit card. Margaret had written the customer service number beneath the words. Walter held the sleeve between both hands. For years, that card had meant safety. A broken furnace. A hospital bill. A car repair when there was no other choice. It had never meant restaurant gift cards or a family vacation plan. Walter placed the sleeve beside the statements. Then he opened a blank spreadsheet on his laptop. He created 4 columns. Agreed. Household. Personal. Unknown. 27 years in school district purchasing had taught him something simple. A vague explanation became weaker when it was placed beside a date and a receipt. He entered every charge. The total in the personal column passed $1,800. The unknown column was higher. Walter checked the shared family tablet next. Ethan had set it up for grocery lists, school calendars, and streaming services. Walter opened the payment settings. His credit card appeared as the default payment method. Not only for groceries. It was saved in Ethan's shopping account. The family's streaming account. A travel booking profile. And a digital wallet Walter had never used. He photographed every screen. Then he removed the card from the tablet. A message appeared. Changes require the family organizer's password. Walter tried Ethan's name. Incorrect. He tried the 4-digit code used for the front door lock. The account opened. Walter removed his card from each service. All except one. In the family payment app, a recurring transfer request had been scheduled for the first day of the next month. Payee. Ethan Hayes. Memo. Hayes household contribution. Amount. $1,500. Walter stared at it. He already transferred $600 every month. No one had asked him for another $900. No one had shown him a budget. No one had explained what the payment covered. He printed the page. The family printer upstairs began running. Walter heard footsteps above him. Then the printer stopped. A minute later, Ethan called down the basement stairs. "Dad, did you just print something?" Walter looked at Margaret's envelope. Then at the scheduled charge. "Yes," he said. "What was it?" Walter closed his laptop. "Something I was never supposed to see." Walter carried the printed page upstairs. Ethan and Lauren were still in the kitchen. He placed the paper between them. "What is Hayes' household contribution?" Ethan looked at the amount. He did not appear surprised. "It's your share of the monthly expenses." "My share is $600. That was when you first moved in." Walter kept his voice level. "I moved in 4 months ago. Everything costs more now." Walter placed the credit card statements beside the scheduled payment. "Does everything include your truck?" Ethan leaned against the counter. "I use that truck to take the kids places." "The hotel charge for Richard?" "He came for Sophie's birthday." "The restaurant gift cards?" "Lauren used them for school volunteers." Lauren looked at Ethan. Walter noticed that she did not confirm the answer. He pointed to the youth soccer fees. "And this?" "Your grandchildren play soccer. That does not mean you can choose which expenses I pay." Ethan's face tightened. "You keep talking like we're strangers." "No. I'm talking like the owner of the card." The kitchen went quiet. Walter turned toward Lauren. "Did Ethan tell you I agreed to $1,500 a month?" She looked down at the statements. "I thought you two had worked something out." "When?" Lauren did not answer. Ethan reached for the printed page. Walter placed his hand over it. "Leave it there. It's just a household schedule." "Then why was it scheduled without asking me?" Ethan stepped back. "Because you live here, Dad. You use the utilities. You eat with us. The kids spend time downstairs." Walter opened his banking app. He showed Ethan the 4 monthly transfers. $600 each. Then he showed the $8,000 payment for the basement renovation. "I have contributed." Ethan looked at the screen. "That money is already gone." The words stayed in the room. Walter understood what Ethan meant. Past help no longer counted. Only the next payment did. Ethan gathered the lunch bags from the counter. "If you want every detail in writing, I'll make an agreement." "I never asked for an agreement. You're the one questioning everything." Ethan left for work. An hour later, Walter received a message from Richard. "Ethan says you're backing out of expenses you already approved. Call me before Sunday dinner." Walter read it twice. Ethan had begun telling other people that Walter had changed his mind. That made every unauthorized charge look like a broken promise instead of a boundary that had never been given. Lauren waited until the garage door closed. Then she walked to the basement stairs. "There's something you should see," she said. "What?" "A spreadsheet Ethan keeps on his laptop." Walter looked at her. Lauren lowered her voice. "It lists what he thinks you're supposed to pay." Then she added one more thing. "He started it before you moved in." Lauren opened Ethan's laptop in the laundry room. The washing machine was running. Its low hum covered their voices. She entered the password and opened a folder labeled Household Planning. Inside was a spreadsheet. Walter's name appeared in the first column. The file had been created 3 weeks before he moved into the basement. Walter read the first line. Walter monthly contribution. $1,500. The next line was worse. Vacation ownership deposit. $25,000. Below that. Future family loan. $40,000. Possible mortgage support. Amount to be determined. Walter looked at Lauren. "Did Ethan tell you I agreed to any of this?" He said you wanted to help. That was not my question. Lauren lowered her eyes. No. I never heard you agree. Walter took photographs of each section. Then he checked the file history. Ethan had updated the spreadsheet 9 times. The first version was made before Walter sold the house. The most recent update was from the previous evening. Beside the vacation deposit was a note. Richard. Sunday dinner. Present as shared investment. Walter read it twice. So Richard believes I'm investing with him. Lauren nodded slowly. I think Ethan told him you were interested. I have never discussed a timeshare with Richard. Lauren closed the laundry room door. Our mortgage is behind, she said. Ethan kept saying your money could give everyone room to breathe. Walter looked back at the spreadsheet. This was the first answer. The credit card charges were not careless purchases. They were part of a budget Ethan had created without Walter's consent. Walter's savings were already being assigned to future expenses. The spreadsheet did not treat him like a father living with family. It treated him like expected income. His phone rang. Ethan. Walter answered. I received a security alert from my laptop, Ethan said. Someone opened the household file. I've been reading. Dad, don't turn this into something it isn't. What is it? A family trying to make things work. By spending money I never offered? Ethan exhaled. We'll talk Sunday. Richard will be there. Why? Because you told me you wanted to invest in something useful. Walter looked at Lauren. She shook her head. I never told you that. There was a pause. Then Ethan's voice hardened. You may not remember every conversation. Walter ended the call. He copied the spreadsheet to a flash drive and placed it inside Margaret's envelope. Now he knew Ethan had planned the monthly charges. But a larger question had opened. How many people had Ethan already promised Walter's money to? Sunday dinner would give him the first answer. After Walter locked the card, he left the dining room and went downstairs. Ethan followed him. The basement door closed behind them. You embarrassed Richard, Ethan said. Walter placed his phone on the desk. Richard knew exactly how much money I received from selling the house. He asked me. And you answered. Ethan folded his arms. It wasn't a secret. It was not your information to share. Walter opened the spreadsheet on his laptop. He turned the screen toward Ethan. $1,500 each month. $25,000 for the timeshare. $40,000 for a future loan. Possible mortgage support. Ethan looked at the file without surprise. You went through my computer. Lauren showed it to me. Ethan's expression changed. Only for a moment. Then he looked back at Walter. Dad, you have more money than you'll ever use. Walter sat very still. You do not know what the rest of my life will cost. You sold the house. Your pension covers your basic expenses. What are you saving all of it for? For the years I may have left. Ethan shook his head. That money could strengthen this whole family. Walter picked up Margaret's white envelope. Emergency only. He placed it beside the laptop. I gave you access for groceries and emergencies. You live in our house. I paid for part of this basement. I transfer $600 every month. That does not cover what it costs to have another person here. Then you should have said that before I sold my home. Ethan looked toward the ceiling. The children's footsteps moved across the kitchen above them. We made room for you, he said. Walter heard the real meaning. Ethan believed the room gave him a claim on everything Walter brought into it. What happens if I refuse the timeshare? Walter asked. Ethan's voice became quieter. Then maybe this arrangement is not working. There it was. Not a request. A price. Walter could keep paying and remain close to his grandchildren. Or he could protect his money and risk losing the home he had just moved into. 4 months earlier, that choice would have frightened him. Now it clarified everything. Walter closed the spreadsheet. I understand. Ethan's shoulders relaxed. Good. We can talk again tomorrow. Walter did not correct him. He waited until Ethan went upstairs. Then he opened his banking app and wrote down every account number. He placed the statements, the flash drive, and Margaret's envelope inside a leather folder. Before going to bed, Walter scheduled an appointment at a credit union across town. 9 o'clock the next morning. Ethan still believed his father was preparing to negotiate. Walter was preparing to remove every door Ethan could still open. Walter arrived at the credit union 9 minutes early. He carried one leather folder. Inside were the statements, Ethan's spreadsheet, Margaret's envelope, and the flash drive Lauren had given him. A representative named Denise Carter led him into a private office. I need new accounts, Walter said. And no one else should have access. Denise did not ask him to explain the family. She asked for identification. Then she helped him open a checking account and a savings account in his name alone. Denise helped him initiate a verified wire from his old bank. $278,000 would arrive in the new savings account later that day. He changed every password. He added a new security question Ethan could not answer. He also changed his mailing address to a post office box. When that was finished, Walter called the credit card company from Denise's office. Remove Ethan Hayes as an authorized user, he said. The representative canceled both cards and issued Walter a new account number. Then she reviewed the last 3 statements with him. The total connected to Ethan's card was $13,280. Some charges were groceries. Some were household repairs Walter had approved. But the rest included Ethan's truck, restaurant bills, subscriptions, sporting goods, and the pending timeshare deposit. $6,800 had not settled yet. Can you stop it? Walter asked. The card is locked, the representative said. But the merchant may still complete a previously authorized reservation. You should contact them immediately. Walter called Lakeshore Vacation Ownership. The company opened a dispute. But the pending hold could still settle before the review was complete. Because the reservation was under Richard Coleman's name, the fastest way to stop it was for Richard to cancel it directly. That was the third wall. Walter called him from the parking lot. Richard answered quickly. Did you change your mind about Sunday? I never agreed in the first place. Richard went quiet. Ethan told me you were already on board. He told you wrong. I need to hear that from him. You are hearing it from the man whose card was charged. Richard exhaled. I'll speak with Ethan tonight. He did not promise to cancel. When Walter returned to the house, Sophie and Caleb were sitting on the basement steps. Sophie looked worried. Dad says you're moving because you don't want to help us anymore. Walter sat beside them. This is not your problem to solve. Are you leaving? Caleb asked. Walter looked toward the ceiling. I may live somewhere else. But I am not leaving you. He did not explain the money. Children should not have to carry adult arguments. After they went upstairs, Walter entered his room. A white envelope waited on his desk. Inside was a document titled Family Contribution Agreement. It required $2,000 each month. It also required Walter to restore Ethan's access to the replacement card. At the bottom, Ethan had written one sentence by hand. Sign within 72 hours, or the basement will no longer be available. Lauren asked Walter to meet her at a coffee shop near the elementary school. She arrived carrying a large envelope. I printed these before Ethan changed the password, she said. Walter opened it. The first page was an email from Ethan to Richard. It had been sent 3 weeks before Walter moved into the basement. Dad should clear around $278,000 after the house sells. Once he gets comfortable here, I can talk him into the vacation deposit. Walter read the date again. At that time, Ethan was still telling him the move was about family. About Sophie and Caleb. About not spending another winter alone. Walter turned to the next page. The timeshare is only the beginning. Dad should be helping with the mortgage too. He has a pension, and most of the house money will just sit there. Richard had replied with one question. Has Walter agreed? Ethan's answer was shorter. Not yet. Give me time. Walter placed the pages flat on the table. The credit card charges had started after he moved in. But the plan had started before he sold the house. Did you know about these messages? He asked. Lauren wrapped both hands around her coffee cup. I knew Ethan was hoping you would help more. That is not what I asked. She looked at the envelope. I saw the spreadsheet. When? Before the basement was finished. Walter waited. Lauren's voice dropped. Our mortgage was 3 months behind. Ethan said you would rather help us than watch the house go into default. So you let me believe I was moving in because you wanted me clothes. We did want you clothes. And you also wanted my money. Lauren did not deny it. That answer hurt more than an argument would have. Walter turned to the final email. Ethan had written it the day before Walter signed the contract to sell his house. Once Dad no longer has the old place, he'll understand that this is where his money needs to work. Walter folded the page once. Ethan had not merely taken advantage of an opportunity. He had counted on Walter giving up the one home he could return to. Lauren wiped at the edge of her cup. I should have stopped it. Yes, Walter said. You should have. He placed the emails inside Margaret's envelope. Then his phone vibrated. A message from Ethan appeared. 48 hours left. Sign the agreement, or have your things out by Friday. Walter looked through the coffee shop window. For the first time, the deadline did not feel like a threat. It felt like written proof that Ethan believed housing could purchase control. Walter forwarded the message to himself, saved a screenshot, and called the manager of a nearby 55-plus community. I need the earliest available unit, he said. Then he asked one more question. Do you have short-term housing while I wait? The 55-plus community had one unit available. But it would not be ready for 10 days. The manager offered Walter a furnished apartment nearby until the repairs were finished. It cost more than Walter wanted to spend. The apartment had no garage. No workshop. No room for the tools Margaret had helped him collect over 30 years. Walter signed the short-term lease anyway. By the time he returned to Ethan's house, half his woodworking equipment had been moved out of the basement. His table saw stood against the garage wall. 2 boxes of hand tools sat beside the trash cans. Ethan was carrying another box upstairs. What are you doing? Walter asked. Preparing the basement. For what? My home office. My deadline is Friday. I'm helping you get started. Walter opened the nearest box. Inside were Margaret's picture frames, his tax records, and the wooden clock he had built for their 30th anniversary. Nothing had been wrapped. One corner of the clock was chipped. Walter lifted it carefully. You could have damaged this. Ethan set the box down. You're the one choosing to leave. No. I'm choosing not to buy permission to stay. Ethan pointed toward the agreement on Walter's desk. $2,000 a month is reasonable. You also need to reimburse the charges you approved. I approved groceries and emergencies. You benefited from the household. And I paid $600 every month. Ethan's voice hardened. That was never enough. Walter looked around the basement. For months, he had called it home. Now his belongings were stacked like inventory. The message was clear. Sign, pay, and remain useful. Or leave. Walter picked up his phone. Thursday dinner, he said. You, Lauren, Richard, and me. Ethan studied him. For what? I'll settle every expense I actually agreed to. Ethan's shoulders relaxed. He believed Walter was preparing to pay. Fine, he said. But the agreement still needs to be signed. Walter folded it and placed it inside his leather folder. I'll bring it Thursday. That answer satisfied Ethan. It was meant to. Walter spent the afternoon packing. Near the bottom of his suitcase, he found a photograph of Margaret standing beside his first workbench. A note had been written on the back in Sophie's careful handwriting. Grandpa, your workshop can be anywhere you are. Walter placed the photograph inside his wallet. Then he carried his first suitcase to the car. Leaving the basement would cost him comfort. It might also cost him daily time with the grandchildren. But staying would teach Ethan that every boundary had a price. At Thursday dinner, Walter intended to show him that consent did not. Thursday dinner began without Sophie and Caleb. Lauren had arranged for them to stay with a neighbor. Walter placed his leather folder beside his plate. Ethan looked at it. You brought the agreement? I brought everything. Walter removed 4 sets of papers. The credit card statements. His monthly bank transfers. Ethan's household spreadsheet. And the emails Lauren had printed. Richard stopped unfolding his napkin. Walter looked at him first. What did Ethan tell you I had agreed to? Richard glanced at Ethan. He said you wanted to help with the timeshare deposit. How much? $25,000. Anything else? Richard hesitated. He said you might help with the mortgage later. Ethan leaned forward. That was not a promise. It was a possibility. Walter placed the email between them. The message said Walter would fund the deposit once he became comfortable in the house. Richard read it. You told me he was already on board. I said he would probably agree. Walter turned toward Lauren. Did I ever agree in front of you? Lauren looked at the spreadsheet. No. Ethan stared at her. You knew Dad was helping with the household. Walter slid 4 bank records across the table. $600 every month. Then he added the basement invoice. $8,000 toward the renovation. He placed several receipts beside it. Groceries. A water heater repair. New shelves for the basement. I was contributing before you used my card. Ethan tapped the statements. The truck repair was an emergency. That was your first explanation. Walter pointed to the monthly charge. Then you called it rent. He touched the spreadsheet. After that, you called it family money. Ethan's jaw tightened. It all supported the same household. Walter kept his voice calm. Which purchase did I agree to? Ethan did not answer. Walter pointed to the timeshare charge. Did I approve this? You would have benefited from it. That was not my question. The silence lasted several seconds. Richard looked at the $6,800 pending charge. You used his card before I spoke with him? Ethan looked away. Richard pushed his chair back and took out his phone. I'm canceling the reservation. Ethan reached across the table. Richard, wait. No. You told me Walter had agreed. Richard called the vacation company. Walter listened as he gave the reservation number and requested immediate cancellation. When the call ended, Richard placed the phone beside the brochure. They're reversing the deposit. Walter closed the agreement Ethan had demanded. The largest charge was being stopped. But the rest of the money was still on the table. And Ethan had not yet admitted that he believed his father's consent was optional. Walter opened the final section of his folder. I separated every charge, he said. He placed 1 page in front of Ethan. Groceries. The plumber. 2 pharmacy purchases. I agreed to those. The total at the bottom was $1,850. These are mine. Then he placed a second page beside it. Your truck repair. Restaurant bills. Sporting goods. Subscriptions. Richard's hotel. The amount at the bottom was $4,630. This is what you owe me. Ethan looked at the total. I don't have that kind of money right now. I did not ask for it tonight. Walter removed a repayment schedule. $200 each month. No interest. No late fees unless Ethan stopped paying without explanation. Ethan read the first line. You already moved the house money. Yes. You closed the card. Yes. You changed all the accounts. Walter looked directly at him. Yes. Ethan pushed the paper away. So you planned all this before dinner? I prepared before dinner. There's a difference. Planning is what you did before I moved in. Lauren looked down. Richard remained silent. Walter placed the family contribution agreement on top of the spreadsheet. You listed my money before I agreed. He added Ethan's emails. You promised it to other people. Then he placed the credit card statements last. And you spent it before asking. Ethan rubbed one hand across his forehead. We were behind on the mortgage. You could have asked for help. You might have said no. Walter nodded once. That was my right. The words ended the argument. Ethan had not hidden the purchases because Walter was unable to understand them. He had hidden them because Walter might refuse. Lauren brought a small folder from the kitchen cabinet. Inside were Walter's old card, a printed copy of the household schedule, and a page where Ethan had written Walter's old account number. Walter looked at his son. Why did you copy my identification? For emergencies. You no longer decide what counts as an emergency. Ethan signed the repayment schedule. Walter signed only as the person receiving payment. Then he picked up the old credit card. He cut it in half with the kitchen scissors. You did not use my money because you needed help, Walter said. You used it because you decided my consent was optional. Ethan stared at the two pieces on the table. Walter closed the leather folder. The next morning, he carried his final suitcase out of the basement. Lauren promised to bring Sophie and Caleb to see him on Saturday. Ethan stood near the garage but did not offer to help. Walter placed Margaret's photograph in the passenger seat. He was leaving the house. He was not leaving his family. For the first time since Margaret died, Walter understood that those were not the same decision. 6 months later, Walter lived in a 55-plus community outside Indianapolis. His new place was smaller than the house he had shared with Margaret. But it had two things he needed. A front door that belonged to him. And a one-car garage large enough for a workbench. Walter built birdhouses on Tuesday mornings. On Saturdays, Sophie and Caleb helped him sand the wood and choose the paint. They did not come because Walter paid for soccer equipment or restaurant meals. They came because they wanted to see their grandfather. That difference mattered. Lauren brought them every other weekend. She usually stayed for coffee. Sometimes Ethan came with her. Sometimes he did not. Walter never asked the children to explain why. Ethan sent $200 on the first day of each month. Every payment carried the same note. Repayment. Walter kept a record of each one. He did not use the payments to punish his son. He used them to measure whether Ethan's promises had finally become actions. Their conversations remained limited. They discussed the children. The weather. A loose step Ethan needed help repairing. They did not discuss Walter's savings. Ethan did not know the name of Walter's new credit union. He did not know the account balances. He did not have a card, a password, or a copy of Walter's identification. One Saturday, Ethan stood in the garage while Walter repaired a small wooden chair. I know saying I'm sorry doesn't fix it, Ethan said. Walter continued sanding the edge. No. It doesn't. Do you think you'll ever trust me again? Walter set the sandpaper down. I trust you to bring the children when you say you will. Ethan waited. That's all? That's what you've earned so far. Ethan nodded. For once, he did not argue. After he left, Walter opened a small wooden box on the shelf. Inside were the two halves of the old credit card. Margaret's white envelope rested beneath them. Emergency only. Walter placed the card back inside and closed the lid. It could no longer buy anything. It could no longer open Ethan's shopping account. It no longer represented safety. Now it represented a boundary Walter had learned to protect. Hello, my friends. I'm Eleanor Brooks. Family may ask for help, but love does not give anyone the right to spend your trust. Walter did not remove Ethan from his life. He removed Ethan's access to the parts of his life that had been misused. Do you believe Walter was right to allow his son to rebuild the relationship slowly? Or would Ethan's secret spending and financial promises have ended that relationship for you? I'd like to hear what you would have done in Walter's place. Until next time, take care of yourself and your peace.